All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the Minnesota Vikings in tonight's video. Folks, the JJ McCarthy injury obviously unbelievably sucks. It absolutely sucks. But it doesn't mean the season is over, and it doesn't mean that the Minnesota Vikings season is anywhere close to being over, folks. This is a team that 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, but 2 years ago, won 13 freaking football games and made the playoffs. Like, the Vikings have a clear, competent roster, and I know that this you should take with a grain of salt, but the youngest teams in the National Football League based on average age of their 53-man roster, Minnesota's coming in here at tied for second. Number one's Miami Dolphins, if you're curious. But technically, the 53-man roster, the Vikings have a 27.2 average age. And then I saw something else that was interesting. Teams with the most players with at least 4 years of NFL experience, the Minnesota Vikings tied for third in the entire National Football League at 33. So my point is the defense, who you guys just picked up, Stephon Gilmore, the defense is vastly underrated. And by the end of last season, even though the Minnesota Vikings defense was on the field all the freaking game because Kirk Cousins got injured halfway through the year, and you're running Dobbs and Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins, the Vikings defense led by Brian Flores, it turned into a lethal unit. And there is not a shot in hell that the Minnesota Vikings defense this upcoming season is worse than average. They're not going to be a worse defensive team this upcoming season, even though they lost some household names like Danielle Hunter. So welcome back to the channel. Obviously, we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings in tonight's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Vikings fans, love and appreciate you guys as always. You could try and get this video to 100 likes. That would mean the absolute world to me. So obviously, we have to talk about Stephon Gilmore because this is a needle-moving move, especially because I want to talk about Dwight McLaughlin, because he amazed everybody in preseason. He had a great freaking college career, especially the last couple of years at Arkansas. This is an SEC cornerback. So, the Vikings defensive back room has been just very unfair. Honestly, the Vikings offseason in general has been very unfair, but stuff like this happens. The win-loss record this upcoming season is not something I'm going to be too hung up on, but I want to say this upcoming season, the Minnesota Vikings, The Athletic did like a poll, 32 teams, and you had to give like a win prediction total for the Minnesota Vikings. And Alec Lewis, I think he's the writer for the Vikings on The Athletic, the win total was at 6.8. I think it's fair because Sam Darnold, has just kind of always been underwhelming, but obviously we've talked about it all off season. I think it's because he got drafted by the Jets and then spent time in Carolina. And it's like, that's where quarterbacks and offenses go to die. But my point is, I think this year actually kind of reminds me almost of the Indianapolis Colts, where they had Gardner Minshew, their early top 10 draft pick in Anthony Richardson, unfortunately played 3 full football games and started the 4th game, and you're not going to see that with JJ McCarthy. So that's what sucks. So it is obviously a little bit different. But Gardner Minshew led this Indianapolis Colts team to a 9-8 record, and Shane Steichen, rookie head coach, brilliant offensive mind, just like Kevin O'Connell. I just don't know why Minnesota would ever be like a 5 or 6 win team, especially considering the defense. But anyways, let's get through this, what Alec Lewis pointed out. So there are days when mock projections feel low and other days when it feels high. Is it underrating Brian Flores' defense? Is it accurately assessing quarterback Sam Darnold? Maybe yes, maybe no. If you think it's too high, it's probably because of the schedule. The Vikings open up with the Giants, then face a gauntlet: 49ers, Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions, and Rams. Those are 6 teams who have incredible talent and high-end coaching. If you see 6.8 wins too low, you're probably looking at Darnold's situation, and Kevin O'Connell thinking an explosive offense is in store. Both viewpoints make sense. All right, I butchered that last part, but the point is, no one's expecting anything too crazy from Minnesota this upcoming season. But when you take a look at this roster on paper, you've got a really solid offensive line. You've got a really, really freaking solid left tackle, and Justin Jefferson, freshly paid. Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson will be back before you know it. I think they're pinpointing now like week 5. New addition, Aaron Jones, last month of the season, emerging like potential future running back of the Minnesota Vikings, honestly, and Ty Chandler. And then you have Jalen Naylor, Tristan Jackson, Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield. My point is the Vikings offense is really solid. And all things considered, they did a really exponential job at the end of last season, or just, I should say, the games after Kirk Cousins' injury. Minnesota started the season off very slow, and then they start to ramp it up, and that's when it sucks because that's when Kirk Cousins got injured. But they still hung on the entire season. And now they've got a much more competent, capable quarterback, a more reliable quarterback in Sam Darnold than they did last year in Jaron Hall, Nick Mullins, and Joshua Dobbs. So it just kind of reminds me of Indianapolis last year. So, losing JJ for this season, it's not necessarily, it's definitely not a long-term concern because the Vikings long-term, you got to love it with your future quarterback, hopefully in JJ McCarthy. It just sucks we won't see him. But he probably would have needed a little bit of time. Would have JJ even have been week one starting quarterback? That, this is a question we'll never have answered. But point is, all is not lost with Sam Darnold running the offense this upcoming season. I also think it's important to note no distractions. You extended Christian Darrisaw, you extended Justin Jefferson, and then obviously comes in a potentially weak secondary. You sign veteran cornerback in Stephon Gilmore. This is a 5-time Pro Bowler. It's a 2-time All-Pro. I know he's not getting any younger, but last season with Dallas, 17 starts, 2 interceptions, 68 tackles, 13 passes defended, a forced fumble. So yeah, like Minnesota's not necessarily a Super Bowl pick here, but once again, this is a team that won 13 games 2 years ago. The defense is talented. I'm going to use a guy like Ivan Pace as a great example. This was a late sleeper, literally the definition of a hidden gem in last year's NFL draft. He only started 11 freaking football games, finished with over 100 tackles. So it's a revamped defense, but Stephon Gilmore as cornerback one, especially considering everything that's happened in that defensive back room, it's absolutely huge. And I have to talk about Dwight McGlothern real quick because I do think at some point he will overtake Shaq Griffin's role as a starting cornerback. And if that's the case and he plays up to that, the defensive back room really isn't that bad. Stephon Gilmore, Byron Murphy, Cam Bynum, Harrison Smith, and Shaq Griffin is a adequate starting cornerback. So my point is this defense is really solid. Obviously, 1 year, $10 million contract, 5-time Pro Bowler to Stephon Gilmore. But Dwight McGlothern joined this team, undrafted free agent. He spent 3 years as a starter between Arkansas Razorbacks the last couple of years, and then he started his college tenure with LSU. He just had a great offseason. In coverage, the undrafted defensive back posted an 87.3 grade throughout preseason with 1 interception and a 16.7 passer rating allowed per PFF. Also, he did well against the run, posting an 85 grade and 2 run stops. So this could be, another one of these hidden gems that Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings organization has found. So, no, all is not lost. They're going to give every single divisional opponent, including my Packers, hell, because that's how divisional games go. Minnesota, to me, could be anywhere between 7 or 10 wins this upcoming season, but I don't see it lower, and I don't see it higher. I think this is going to be an adequate average, at very least, team in the National Football League this upcoming season. So thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content, and give me a win prediction for Minnesota down below. Peace.